My fellow gamers, ladies and gentlemen of the nation, what is going on, y'all? Your dude Sly here, back at it with another game review video for you, and this time we are taking a look at Jedi Fallen Order. Now, just a heads up here, there is a ton to talk about within this game, and some of it may be a bit spoilery. Now, I'm not going to go over anything that will ruin the game for you, like at all, but there are some clips and images in here that are from the middle of the game. But I promise I will not include anything that ruins the story or the game's more fantastic moments. So with that, let's not delay, guys, let's get into it. Fallen Order was a game that I've been tracking for a damn long time. I was hoping to get my hands on it at E3 last year, but never worked out due to scheduling and missing the community managers at just about every turn. But sometimes it is best to wait and see the final product before casting any judgment. Now, I focus a lot on BioWare games, mostly Mass Effect, Destiny, MMO, RPG type of games, which are usually full of story and lore, which Star Wars is absolutely packed full of. But just about every Star Wars game, albeit a few of them, just like the Old Republic, have been less than fantastic. Some seem to think Star Wars games are cursed, and even Battlefront. I mean, I love Battlefront for its multiplayer, capabilities, but in terms of bringing, the grandeur of Star Wars into a video game, it didn't quite make it. There has been an absolute daunting task with Star Wars games. I mean, to live up to the hype and grandeur of its big screen cousin, a couple of games, like I said, got close, but it's hard to make a game feel like a game while giving players a movie-like experience. On top of that, you have to work closely with LucasArts and now Disney to make sure you don't cross any lines that contradict the movie, its style, all the while praying with hope that you can use some of the iconic characters that fans want to see. Now, I'm sure it's not an easy line to tread at all, but as Rogue One and the other Star Wars stories have proven, there are many, many tales left to be told within this universe, and they don't always have to focus on the big names. The game itself is a little less than a decade from the day Palpatine executed the infamous Order 66, purging the Jedi, labeling them as traitors, and mandated they be shot on sight. Most of the big movies focused on the big picture, and of course Coruscant is at the middle of that, where the Jedi Council, the Emperor, and various senators throughout the galaxy come to do business as well as live. But we know from side stories, comics, and other various Star Wars lore that the Jedi had multiple bases, tons of ships, and they were spread all throughout the galaxy. The story starts with a young Padawan by the name of Cal Kestis. After the events of Order 66, Cal goes into hiding and works as a general laborer on a shipbreaking planet. You end up fleeing for your life and in the process come across allies that help you throughout the game. Grease, the ship's captain, and an ex-Jedi named Seer Junda. Characters that fit in so well, but the entire time you are questioning their motives, wondering if there's something more going on behind the scenes. However, even with the lingering doubt, you can't help but to love coming back to the ship. There are a handful of planets that you can travel to, freely of course, ships and bases you can visit, and each trip is not only correct in its detail, but vivid and a pleasure to walk around. Now, of course, I am a big Star Wars fan, but to say I'm an uber fan, well, that would be extremely overstating it. But I do feel like this game satisfies a Star Wars fan in and on so many levels that you know it had to have been made by fans themselves. The flashback Cal goes through, the people, planets, the ships you fight your way through, in his non-stop bombardment of Star Wars goodness from the moment you get into the game. Things behind the scenes you always wanted to see in the movies but never had a chance to, areas or places where you always wondered what the rest of the planet would look like or the rest of the ship. I mean, where do younglings train? How are they taught? Rituals, training, all those small details would take up way too much time in a movie, but in a game where the longer the campaign the better, at least in my opinion, it is an absolutely perfect fit. Now, speaking of the actual game itself, you can tell that this game was created for consoles, specifically Xbox One X, and then ported over to the PC, which is what I played on and what you'll see in the background throughout the rest of this video. Now, as far as ports themselves go, it's not really the best. Controller is probably your best option and way to go because of how the game was designed around it, but with the right mouse and keyboard bindings, you can make it work. As far as graphics and textures, there are a few issues. Now, it's nothing game-breaking, but there are a lot of small instances of texture clipping, sound syncing problems, and a few other minor things. But, however minor, there are quite a few of them. But really, it's a minor nuisance at best and nothing that deters from gameplay whatsoever. It's something you kind of see out the corner of your eye and then you move on. Unless it's one of the characters in their outfits stretching all over the screen and freaking out, but that only happened once or twice. The worst part of this port was my audio coming out of sync, as you can see right here. Take a listen.
The next generation of Jedi. I knew it! Ah, Cordova, you old fool.
You knew him?
Yes. A long time ago. I was his apprentice. Cordova was
Now, reviewing Star Wars games and videos, I mean, especially when it comes to audio, I would need to make this clip short because of copyright issues. So I just wanted to give you guys a taste of what actually happens. But it corrected itself after I died and I respawned. On my second playthrough on the harder difficulty, this time mouse and keyboard only, it happened once again. And once again, dying solved it. So if you scan something and don't hear background voices, or you try to say hi to BD1 by using the emote button out of combat, I think it's D-pad left or right, I can't really remember. But if you see BD spin around and you can't hear him say anything, try to die and then respawn, see if that fixes it. You'll know it worked by hearing a bunch of old audio that's stacked up. If not, jump into your ship, fly to another place, and then come back. That will work for sure. Now, as far as the port goes, in my playthrough, the two worst things I dealt with was 1, the audio out of sync, and number 2, mouse and keyboard, because the port is nowhere nearly as fine-tuned as a controller, and my dodges kept messing up after I binded them to a different key. I kept dodging right when I wanted to go left, and I kept dodging left when I wanted to go right, which on harder difficulties, dodging is an absolute crucial part of combat, so it was quite annoying. However, it only happened a couple of times, and for the most part, it was fine. So small issues aside, let's go ahead and move on to talk about the cast. Now, the cast of characters within this game are unique, and besides stories, show a part of the struggle that I've never seen before in a Star Wars movie or a game for that matter. You, of course, start out as strangers and leave as friends, but there's really more to it than that. Each of the characters grow in your own journey, and you couldn't have done it without them despite all of their faults. The star sidekick is, of course, BD1, the tiny droid with a story of its own, and as likable and absolutely as lovable as they come, BD is the most crucial partner you have for not only technical and combat support, but moral support as well. Cal has been alone for such a long time, and the connection they make together is, amazing, guys. From clips of memories to cutscene, the chatter in between, Respawn did a fan-effing-tastic job with this little droid and the bond that BD and Cal share together. It's hard to humanize droids that don't talk or take human form, but Respawn absolutely nailed it here. The cool thing about being the droid is that you can always upgrade it, and the entire game you're basically looting chests to make stuff look good. The ship, your outfit, your lightsaber, droid, top to bottom customizable. The ship itself is another great addition. While it doesn't do much more than really look pretty and shuttle you around, the way it flies, the small things hidden inside, it adds a welcoming place that I never became bored of, and I caught myself sighing with relief when I made it back inside my ship. Some of the planets you can travel to are much, much larger than they first seem. Thanks to the Dark Souls style of combat and traversal, it makes moving from point to point a little tedious at times, especially since all of the enemies respawn after you meditate or die, but it allows you to kind of farm for XP, which you can then use to upgrade. As far as upgrades go, Respawn did a great job at picking the right moves for Cal with the right power at the right time. You have to remember that this is not the Force Unleashed. This isn't a fully grown Jedi. This isn't about as being, as powerful as Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader. You're a kid, a teenager whose connection to the Force has been weakened ever since Order 66 forced him to abandon his training early and then, of course, ultimately forced him to flee. This is why I think the style of combat Respawn chose in this game is absolutely spot on. Even a lower level stormtrooper can kill you in this game. Of course, it's rare when that happens, but in the beginning of the game, it can absolutely happen. Small bugs or insects can get the best of you. You're not a fully trained Padawan and nowhere near a Jedi Knight. The beginning of your journey has you trotting about dangerous places with limited health, limited force power, and limited moves. Blocking and parrying is crucial to your survival, but the way you upgrade your skills over time as your connection to the Force becomes stronger, and the way your enemies continue to challenge you as that happens, it's a game developer's nightmare, but executed so well here. Even those who aren't a Dark Souls fans like myself will like this game. If you're a Star Wars uber nerd who doesn't like gaming that much, but is only here for really the story, then definitely choose a story mode, as even the Jedi Knight setting can get frustrating, especially during the higher boss battles. Each enemy has its own unique moves, every bug, every stormtrooper, every animal, beast, legendary beast, and of course every boss. So your times to block, your times to strike, your times to use the Force will differ from each enemy you encounter. And on top of that, they will change once again when you battle the harder enemies. At the halfway point of health, legendary beasts and bosses will not only speed up their attacks, but incorporate new ones alongside of it. Now, it usually takes quite a few deaths before you've seen all of the moves and practice blocking them enough to be able to do damage and then ultimately win the fight. Even on the second to lowest setting, which was Jedi Knight, boss battles are no joke here. They are really tough, and you have to dig deep into your bag of tricks and moves in order to gain the upper hand. With that being said, this game does not hold your hand very much either. So a word of advice, when you unlock a new skill or reconnect to the Force, study how it works, when to use it, and memorize the buttons which they're bound to. Unless you go searching for it, the game will not tell you how to do this again. I mean, there was a time, I think it was like 3/4 through my playthrough, where I pulled out a move I've never used before because I ultimately rushed through it and forgot all about it. However, once I rediscovered it and I memorized it, it was a huge part of my combat from there on out and made things so much easier. The only issue I had was consistency. Sometimes I'd go in and dominate just about everything in a blink of an eye. The next time I would die 5 to 6 times trying to get to the exact same area. Bosses are much more consistent, however. Parrying also seems to be a little sluggish as well, but is something that you can definitely adjust to. Out of combat, it is a dream adventure game. This game has Star Wars, a splash of Mass Effect Andromeda, Tomb Raider, and Titanfall all bundled into one. Like I mentioned, when I said the game does not hold your hand, you're free to go wherever, whenever you wish. Whatever path you take is entirely up to you, but some areas are impossible to reach due to various skills you lack, like Tomb Raider. As your connection to the Force grows, you will learn these skills and be able to come back and explore these new areas. While all the planets and areas within Fallen Order are great, Kashyyyk was probably my favorite. Whoever was lead level designer for the game needs a raise because they knocked it out of the park. The exploring, the climbing, the skyboxes, the animals, all set within a well-known Star Wars location, they absolutely did it justice here. Each path that you take will at one time or another cross by it. And as you explore, you can open up shortcuts to make coming back a little less tedious. How they wove all of these paths into these planets is a mystery, but they did a great job while making it look fantastic and like it was meant to be there. Now, one thing I've always loved about this game is you never ever forget you're in a Star Wars game. The music, the undertones, level design, local flora and fauna, the names, they all have that Star Wars feel while venturing off in a brand new direction, which is something I thoroughly enjoyed. The way Respawn connected the adventure side of the game with the combat of a young Jedi, all the while keeping the storyline interesting and the dialogue, I have to say, guys, job freaking well done. However, it's not all sunshine and bunnies. There are parts, especially in the beginning, where you start to question whether the Dark Souls style of combat and its approach to traversal and save points was the way to go for a Star Wars adventure game like Fallen Order is. When you have that thought in your mind and you die from, say, a rat popping out of a hole and you have to retrace your long steps over again and again, it starts to slow down the pace of the game and therefore your interest. However, this is really only temporary and it fades fairly quickly, but there is an hour or so when you start to question if the game is as good as you heard. And this is why difficulty setting is so important here, guys. If you have never played Dark Souls or For Honor or other melee combat types of games, choose the lowest setting. There is still a challenge, especially bosses and mob enemies, and you will still die. But if you choose a setting that's way up there, like in difficulty level, especially your first time through, you will become frustrated and your experience will be much different than mine, and ultimately I think you'll suffer for it. On your second playthrough, that's when you bump it up to 11. But there were times even on the Jedi Knight difficulty, which was the second lowest option, where I thought I might actually change it to the lowest setting. Boss fights mostly. I didn't and eventually overcame it, but it can be tough, so don't let that hold up your progress. Choose a lower difficulty at first, and then once you have a good feel for the game and how boss fights work and all of the enemies and you know all of their moves, then crank it up, because if you're playing through frustrated, you're going to speed through a lot of the subtleties and keep thinking to yourself about how mad you are. Do not let this happen to yourself, guys, because you're going to be ultimately missing out on one of the best Star Wars games created to date. The story itself isn't really the winner here. It's really just an excuse to roam about the galaxy. But that doesn't matter. It's everything that happens in between, from seeing ancient Jedi temples, to solving puzzles inside tombs, reconnecting to the Force, seeing the dark side invade, the skyboxes, planets. We finally have a Star Wars game that does the title justice. Only after you beat the game will you understand why Respawn chose the direction that they did. This is a journey of your average, young Padawan. While gifted, he's no Luke Skywalker. Without help, Cal would not be standing at the end of the game. However, you can almost feel the character growing with you. As you learn new skills and how to use them, the game reacts so naturally to that, and it changes with you. But of course, the part that won me over, adventuring throughout the various planets and areas of the Star Wars universe. Seeing inside structures I've always wanted to explore within movies, climbing trees in Kashyyyk, and getting into places that you see in the movies but can never really look at. The adventure you go on with your crew, and especially the story between yourself and BD, is amazing, even tear-jerking at times. The crew dialogue, how it all unfolds, being able to upgrade your lightsaber throughout the entire time, finding seeds for your ship along with other Mass Effect-like items, it all brings all these worlds together in one of the most popular settings you can get. As far as like an official number for this game, if I had to put a number on it, I would say 9.5. The port to PC, about a 9, because there are some bugs and issues that detract, and while minor, they are plentiful. If you're an Origin Premier subscriber, then this game is included. Download it and play it right now. But it's also worth buying as well. No loot boxes, no microtransactions, a true single-player adventure game made by Respawn on the Unreal Engine, and it's done right. It's time to show EA that Frostbite isn't the only option, and that single-player, narrative-driven adventures can be amazing games. Besides being a great Star Wars game, it's a great game in general, no matter if you're a Star Wars aficionado or a noob to the universe. But yeah, that's about it, guys. Now, I don't know if there are DLC plans for this game or not, but it is one that I've been following for quite some time, and the wait was absolutely worth it. If you're a Star Wars fan, then this will satisfy your cravings on so many levels. Games that play out like movies, such as Mass Effect, that's really my true passion in gaming. But one that's played out like a Star Wars movie and does combat and adventure the right way, now that is rare. If you're wondering about how long the campaign is, it took me about 22 hours to get through all of it. I was AFK for some time, so I don't know if that counted, but it is a good 20-hour campaign. So with that, I hope you all enjoyed this review, and it's also rare that I get this excited about a game, and funny enough, you don't feel this way at the start. It's only once you get about halfway through the game does it all start to connect, and it's rocketing straight up into excitement from there on out. So as always, thank you guys for not only watching, but for supporting Sly Nation. There are a ton of gaming channels out there, guys, and it's awesome that you decided to come and watch my content, so I really do appreciate that. If you're new to Sly Nation, then welcome, my friend. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you stick around for other videos, game reviews, Destiny guides, and much, much more. With Anthem and Mass Effect rumors starting to spread, it is time to start digging into those as well, so keep it here for everything gaming related. Spank the thumbs up, but only if you enjoyed yourself, and subscribe for plenty more Star Wars, Destiny, Mass Effect, Anthem, and other gaming guides and reviews. If you're bored out there looking for the next hottest cat meme, feel free to check me out on Twitter or Facebook at Sly Nation or Sly Nation Gaming over on the FB. Take care, y'all, and keep those eyes open for many more videos coming out here soon. But until then, this is your dude Sly, and may the Force be with you.